Affordability, immigration, and the incoming Trump administration, all things New York lawmakers will have to address in 2025. Hear from state Republican leadership and how he'd like to see the issues handled. Hello and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray.
And I'm Jamie DeLine. We'll get to the issues facing the state in the new year in just a bit. But first, the state capitol closed to the public for several hours this week to let the Electoral College vote take place.
Governor Kathy Hochul took the opportunity to call for the end of the Electoral College.
I strongly believe that the people of New York State and the United States of America should and must have their votes count equally, and that the popular vote should prevail. It's time to amend the Constitution and relegate the institution of the Electoral College to the history books.
In other news now, we recently sat down with the Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, to talk about the biggest issues from this past year and what she's hoping to see done next year.
She explained she is confident that each branch of government will be able to work together to get things done in the coming year.
Along with our Assembly colleagues and the governor, have pretty much been rowing in the same direction. Our priorities are not different. You know, we're not fighting about whether or not we need housing. We are talking about how we can get, frankly, the most bang for New Yorkers' buck.
Joining us now to break down the 2024 legislative session is Senate Minority Leader Rob Ortt. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
So looking back at this past year, what do you think were some of the biggest successes for the state legislature?
Well, I think, I'll be honest, certainly it might not surprise some of your viewers as the leader of the Republican conference, the minority conference. I don't think there were as many successes as I would have liked to have seen. I think there were a lot of missed opportunities. One of the big issues that went into this election was affordability, the issue that New Yorkers, the economy, inflation, they are having a harder and harder time affording groceries, affording their energy, gas, heating their homes. Everything has gone up. And unfortunately, Albany's spending has gone up. And as I've said many times, if we could spend our way to a more affordable state, we would be one of the most affordable states in the country, when exactly the opposite is true. We're one of the least affordable, one of the most expensive states in the country. And so I don't think the state legislature, I think we missed a lot of opportunities to try and make things more affordable for everyday New Yorkers. In fact, I think we're doing things on the energy side or on the CLCPA that is going to drive up people's gas prices, their price to heat their homes over cold winters. Congestion pricing, I think is absolutely, I know, is going to increase the cost for people to go into New York City, to go to work in New York City, to go and do whatever they're doing in New York City. And so I think we missed chances there. On the migrant issue, I think we missed a real opportunity to try and address that issue. Instead, we sent $4.3 billion over the last 2 years to those families and to those who are coming into the country, into the state, who are here illegally. So I think there was a lot of missed opportunities in the legislative session. Obviously, there were things that were good that I supported around our farmers, agriculture, some infrastructure investment that was made at the state level for our state roads, although more needs to be done there, certainly. So, when you have a $243 billion spending plan, some stuff in there is obviously good and necessary. But there was a lot, I think, misspent and again, some missed opportunities. And I think you saw that in how New Yorkers voted and in the election results, not only in the state, but across the country.
And what would you like to see in the new year? Anything in particular that you would like to see changed?
Yeah, so I think we need to, again, talk, how are we going, what are we going to really do to tackle affordability and the rising costs? The governor this last week has spent the week going to retail stores, grocery stores, talking about these $300 to $500 checks. And look, people, they're going to take it. It's their money. And why not? If you're going to give me $300, yeah, we'll take it. But no one thinks this is a permanent answer or a real concrete solution to try and address affordability issues. It's a gimmick. It's not new. Other elected officials, other governments have done this. I think people see through it. So we need to, if the governor's serious about it, forget the checks. Let's do something concrete, long lasting, and multifaceted to try and drive down grocery prices or help people out with more money, more take home pay by cutting their taxes or reevaluating some of these energy proposals that we know, even the advocates say, are going to increase people's prices to heat their homes, to put gas in their cars. That's what I would like to see. Obviously, I would also like us to see us work with the Trump administration to get people who are in this state, both illegally and who have criminal records, people who have committed crimes after being here. Those folks shouldn't be in New York. Those folks shouldn't be getting taxpayer-funded gift cards and health care and housing. If there's someone who's here who's trying to make a better life for themselves, that's one argument you can make. But to have people who are here illegally, who have committed crimes, who have criminal records, who have been in gangs, to fight the deportation of those individuals is just wrong on so many levels. And so I'm hoping that we can have Mayor Adams, I commend him. I'm hoping we can work with Democrats like Mayor Adams around that issue. And again, on the issue of affordability for sure.
And I know you touched on it earlier, the issue of affordability. It seems to be the theme so far of some of her State of the State proposals. Is there anything that you would like to see her address in the State of the State?
I mean, there's a lot of things. Certainly, again, economic, affordable issues, the migrant crisis, crime, I think continues to remain an issue. I also think, the energy piece. You're seeing there's going to be a new administration in Washington, D.C. You're hearing Canada talk about, withholding power from New York. I want her as the governor of New York to talk about how are we going to make sure that New Yorkers, including in Western New York and in the Adirondacks and in places that deal with storms, cold weather, what are we going to do to make sure we have reliable and affordable energy in the state of New York? You can't rely necessarily on other countries. We've said that before. That's not a new statement, but you're seeing how that can become a real issue and a real leverage point, and not in a good way for the state of New York. So, and by the way, most of that energy we're talking about that comes in from Canada, a lot of that is going to New York City. So how are you going to make sure you have reliable, affordable energy for your largest city, not only in New York, but in the country? And so I'd like her to talk about that. I'd like to hear some more practical solutions to that. And then certainly, mental health remains a major issue. The opioid crisis remains a major issue. Those are maybe less front page things today, but no less important when we talk about, what the state government can do better. And so hopefully we'll hear about that. And then last, I'll just say this. She needs to talk about what she's going to do to keep people from leaving New York State. New York State is bleeding people out faster and at a higher rate than any other state in the country. And regardless of why you think that is, the fact that it is not a deniable point. And so I think the governor, she's touched on it before, mentioned it. She needs to talk about how she's going to keep people here, both through, economic opportunities, by making the state more affordable, by making it more safe, and by being better stewards of taxpayer dollars. That's how we're going to keep people here instead of bleeding them to other states like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, and North Carolina.
And then switching gears just a little bit, we recently had the Electoral College. It was held at the state capitol. The governor talked about her desire to possibly make some changes to that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know that she gets to make any changes to it, thankfully. Look, it's amazing to me that the minute Democrats lose a popular vote, they or lose an election, we have to make all these changes to the Electoral College. First of all, it wouldn't have made any difference this cycle. Donald Trump would still be the president of the United States because not only did he win the Electoral College vote, but he won the popular vote. But you never heard this issue when, at least not from the governor, when Democrats won the electoral vote. Any serious person, anybody who does a touch of history or civics on the American founding understands that we are a republic, and that is different than a direct democracy. This isn't The Voice. This isn't American Idol or some kind of game show. We want to make sure every state has a say, not just California and New York. and some of the large, coastal states. So the bottom line is, I think the Electoral College serves a purpose. It's helped us elect some of our greatest presidents, both Democrat and Republican. I thought it was a cheap stunt, much like the $300 check by the governor, and spoken by like someone who really just doesn't have a clear understanding of the founding of this country, the history of this country, and the importance that those institutions play in the governing of this country. But again, I don't think anyone really takes what she says seriously on that. She doesn't get to do that. As far as I understand the constitutional law and how those changes are made. But I thought it was a stunt. It gets her in the news nationally, and obviously it's a balm for Democrats who are still stinging from the defeat across the country. So, but I don't put a lot of stock into it at this point.
All right, we'll have to leave it right there. Senate Minority Leader Rob Bort, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to your listeners and to your viewers.
Thank you so much. You too.
New York's legal cannabis industry arriving at a major milestone. When we come back, we'll speak with the Office of Cannabis Management on making $1 billion in sales and what they're looking to accomplish next.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter, at WTEN.
Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. Weed or cannabis became legal in New York around 3 years ago, and largely the industry saw an uneasy start to the state.
But now the Office of Cannabis Management saying they will likely pass $1 billion in sales this year.
In addition to the sales milestone, the state now has over 200 retail stores. That's a big increase when compared to last year at this time, when there were barely 24 stores open.
With around $1 billion in sales, that means roughly $100 million in sales taxes. That money will then be available for use in state programs.
Joining us now is Felicia A.B. Reed. She's the acting executive director of the Office of Cannabis Management. Did I get all that right, Felicia?
Yes, you did.
Good luck fitting that in a business card. That's going to be tricky.
So I haven't had them printed yet, but yes, I too am terrified.
Well, talk to me about the year that just was. Boy, what a difference a year can make. I feel like a year ago, we had a couple dozen shops open and there were lawsuits flying everywhere and all kinds of troubles, and things are much different, aren't they?
Yes. So, the lawsuit part hasn't changed. I think that's always going to be a pressure test of the agencies and agency's operation. However, in terms of just the scope of the industry and also where the agency is at, we're talking a massive change since last year. If I can get into it a little bit, last year around this time, we were looking at a few dozen stores, around 160 million in sales. This year, we're on track to set at 1 billion this year, seeing how this holiday season goes, which means that there's been an incremental increase in sales from about that 160 million to 757 million just this year alone. So it's been an incredible year for the industry. I always want to underscore that, but also for the agency.
And are you seeing it across the state? Are there certain areas that are doing really well and other areas where you're hoping to see more growth, or is it sort of growing everywhere?
I would say it's growing everywhere, but I think this is also a function of density. We're talking about, a state that's got a lot of different regional personalities. And so we're seeing the most amount of just store by store growth in the city, but that's also, again, like a function of density. But we're seeing also stores open all over the state: Rochester, Utica, Syracuse, here in Albany, Schenectady. When I go out my door within about 5 miles, I know that there are 3 stores already currently existing, but 5 stores set to open. So it's really exciting.
It is. And how's the issue of, I know law enforcement on the other side of this, trying to close down these illegal shops. Has there been progress made with that as well? Because that really works against you if people are buying it and they're not paying the taxes, they don't know what they're getting, and it sort of flies against everything you're trying to do.
1,000%. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. I've had many calls this week around the intersection of the growth of the industry, but also the prevalence of illicit shops. So it's incredibly important that on the state side, we do everything outside of New York City. We are continuing in those enforcement efforts, but also in concert with New York City, their Operation Padlock to Protect. It's important to be going after those illicit operators. And what I will say is, yes, we're looking at, administrative proceedings around cannabis, but when my enforcement team goes into some of these stores, the things that they have found are really incredible. Everything from fentanyl to ghost guns to sorts of things you wouldn't want anywhere near what you are trying to consume as a matter of cannabis.
I know it bears repeating, though, the stuff you're buying at a legal store is much safer, I'm assuming, than something you get from some guy at a corner bar or some bodega down in the city.
Sure, always be wary of a guy at the corner, right? So when we're talking about our legal dispensaries, we are talking about both our adult use, but also our medical. And for both of those dispensaries, you're looking at product that is tested, that is retested. If there are issues as a matter of health and safety, our agency will recall those products. So there's a very tight eye on what's going out to the public to ensure that it doesn't have things that folks don't expect, everything from mold to aspergillus to heavy metals. Those are not the things that we want showing up in product. But of course, as you mentioned, the illicit operators don't have that necessary standard.
How are they doing with, I know some of the growers were upset because some of them were sitting on product because stores weren't opening as quickly as they had hoped. Is that sort of worked itself out as well, where you're kind of caught up?
It's certainly starting to. I know that the breadth of supply on the cultivation side was much more pointed an issue last year. This year, in also part due to the very interesting season we had for growing this year. It's been a really blockbuster year for the growing season. There's a lot of product, but as you mentioned, there are stores to be able to receive that product. So we're looking at a starting balance between the grow side and the retail side.
Are we going to see a lot more stores popping up? I know in the Albany area, there were only a couple. Now it seems like I've seen several pop up. Is it going to continue to grow that way, or is it kind of reaching a saturation point?
We are far from saturation. So some of the numbers that we've shared in with our CCB, with our agency partners, and we even saw this in a report that came out, I want to say several weeks ago. Whitney Economics did a report projecting the retail side of New York between 1,600 and 2,000. Today, across the state, we have 261 stores. That's an incredible amount of growth from a few dozen last year. But to get to that 1,600 to 2,000 number, there's still many more. And of course, we're always looking at, what's happening locally. I think local communities know their communities better than we at the state do. So as this industry is growing, we want to be working hand in glove with those local communities to make sure that openings are strategic and they make sense for the location that they are.
Well, and to your credit and the state's credit, some of the fears about having these in certain, I haven't heard of any problems with stores in terms of wrong elements hanging around, break-ins, problems. It just seems like they're just existing and going along, and they're like any other store on the block. People go in, they do their thing, they leave, and there don't seem to be any issues with it.
Yeah, I mean, what's really great about the stores that we have on the retail side is that these are small local businesses, particularly on the adult use side. These are folks particularly who had experience in the harms of the war on drugs and are now having this opportunity to open local businesses in their local community. One thing that I'm very conscious of, and I've worked in criminal and juvenile justice, is when you ask folks what they want to be, what they want to do when they are no longer in the criminal justice system, it is almost categorically own a business. So to be able to have that propelling folks forward and folks really interested in supporting their local community is really just incredible.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. We do appreciate you coming on. And I think Santa Claus is going to bring you those business cards, and we'll get that all on there as well. Felicia
That's all I
ABV.
want for Christmas.
There you go. Listen, have wonderful holidays and a Happy New Year. And we will, I'm sure, talk to you again in 2025.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care.
After weeks of investigations, still no word on where all those drones are coming from. When we come back, details on the help the state will be getting to investigate these mysterious sightings.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X, formerly known as Twitter, at WTEN.
Welcome back. We are continuing to follow this unique trend of drone sightings in downstate New York as well as other parts of the East Coast.
Congress this week blocking a measure supported by Senator Chuck Schumer that would have allowed local officials to help identify and track drone sightings. It failed due to privacy concerns. New York is seeing some help now from the federal level. A state-of-the-art drone detection system has been brought to the state to support law enforcement investigations. Senator Chuck Schumer speaking on the mysterious nature of the drone sightings.
I've gotten top briefings. They don't think they're military, they don't think they're harmful, but nobody knows where they come from, what they are, and how many are actually drones and how many are other things.
The White House has also said there is no danger. The FAA this week did ban drones over parts of New Jersey until late January.
Stick around, back with a look at the week ahead in just a bit.
If you have a comment or story idea, let us know. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out on X at WTEN.
Finally, in Empire State Weekly, he was a calming voice in the legislature for nearly 3 decades, serving under 6 governors.
Now Neil Breslin is closing out his career. Next week, in our last show of the year, we'll speak with the senator on what has changed at the state capitol and what comes next for him.
For now, from all of us here at Empire State Weekly, I'm John Gray.
And I'm Jamie DeLine. We'll see you here next week.
Don't you forget, you can watch this show all over New York State. Here's the full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 TV stations across the great state of New York.